Ariana was smart. After their talk at the vigil, he would know exactly who had sent the police to his door. As the week went on, Marisol lived in a state of constant fear. She expected a confrontation, a threat, or even a public shaming. But Ariana did nothing. He didn't look at her. He didn't speak to her. According to the school gossip, he was just helping the police close the case. People called him a hero for being so cooperative during a tragedy. He kept Marisol's name out of his mouth entirely. Life at Billionaire Heights seemed to go back to normal. Mateo's death became old news. The police didn't come back. But as Marisol walked through the halls, she couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on her back. She had thrown a rock at a glass house, and she was just waiting for the first shard to fall. "You really think you've won, don't you?" "Mom, hey," Marisol said, clicking her phone on as she sank into her thin mattress. An exasperated sigh crackled through the speaker. "Well, look who finally picked up. I've tried calling you 3 times this week." Her mother's southern twang was heavy, a sure sign that a lecture was coming. "Yeah, sorry about that. The new semester has been really hectic. You're 1,000 miles away, and I can't even get a hold of you. How do you think that makes me feel, Marisol?" Marisol squeezed her eyes shut. The guilt trip was starting early tonight. "I'm sorry, Mom. I've just had a lot going on. I had to give a scholarship presentation and..." "A presentation? That's why you've been missing my calls. And someone died recently," Marisol added, her voice dropping. "Someone died." Surprise finally broke through her mother's irritation. "Who died?" "A classmate. He took his own life 2 weeks ago. It's been hard." "That's awful," her mother muttered. "Yeah, Let's not talk about this," her mother interrupted with another sigh. "It'll just make me sad. And I just got off back-to-back 12-hour shifts." The dismissal stung, but Marisol bit her tongue. "Sounds like you're working a lot. Ricardo still hasn't found a job." The mention of her stepfather was a mistake. Marisol knew it the second the words left her mouth. "Your stepfather does a lot for us," her mother snapped. Marisol knew better. The only thing Ricardo had ever done for her was make her feel so unwelcome that moving 1,000 miles away to Billionaire Heights Prep felt like an escape. "And he is working," her mother continued. "He's helping some buddies with contract work, fixing up old bikes. It's under-the-table stuff." Marisol rolled her eyes at the ceiling. Ricardo hated a steady paycheck almost as much as he hated the government. "Good for him. So, school is okay? You're keeping up?" "Oh yeah, senior year is a breeze. Just coasting until college applications go through," Marisol lied. It was easier than explaining the soul-crushing pressure of being the charity case at a school for the elite. "That's great, honey. Speaking of applications," Marisol started, her heart hammering. "I'll need to submit them soon. They cost money. I don't know if there's any way you could." The line went cold. Her mother's voice sharpened instantly. "How much?" Marisol fidgeted with her Navy comforter. "About $50 each. Maybe 100, depending on the school. I only need enough for Pratt and a couple of backups. 150 should cover it." $150? Her mother scoffed. "Jesus, Marisol. Didn't I tell you I just worked 24 hours? We barely made rent, and you're asking me to pull $100 out of the couch cushions. I'm not sure why you need so much if you're so sure you're getting into that fancy art school." The weight of the rejection felt like a physical blow. "No, you're right. I'm sorry, Mom." She hesitated, then pushed one last time. "You said Ricardo is making extra cash. Maybe he could loan me." "I'm not asking Ricardo to pay for my daughter's fees," her mother huffed. "Honey, I'm sorry, but you're just going to have to come up with something else." Marisol stared at the wall. Ricardo was only a father when it came to discipline, never when it came to support. "Yeah, no, I get it. I'll figure it out. I got to get back to studying. I'll see you for the holidays." They hung up, and Marisol flopped back onto her bed, staring at the ceiling. The thought of going home to that cramped trailer for the holidays made her stomach turn. A soft rustle at the base of her door caught her attention. Someone had slid a slip of paper into her room. Marisol stood up, expecting a stern note from the dorm advisor. Instead, she found a thick, cream-colored card. You are formally invited to an autumn bash hosted by Ariana Elfrida Friday, October 3rd. Details to follow. Marisol stared at the elegant black calligraphy. This had to be a joke. In 4 years at Billionaire Heights, she had never been invited to a single party, let alone one hosted by Ariana Elfrida. His parties were the stuff of campus legend, exclusive, wild, and strictly for the elite. She knew the party had been delayed because of Mateo's death. But why was she getting an invite now? Was it a mistake? Or was it Ariana's way of pulling her into a corner to talk about what she saw the night Mateo died? She tossed the card onto her desk. She wasn't going. She couldn't risk being near Ariana. But as her eyes drifted to her empty bank account balance on her laptop, a different idea started to form. The next day, the hallway outside the history department was buzzing. The lucky students were waving their invitations like golden tickets. The unlucky ones were fuming. Federico Rios, a stocky lacrosse player in a varsity jacket, was leaning against a locker with a scowl. "No way Locke got one and I didn't," he groused to his friends. "I'm the only guy on the team who didn't get an invite. It's garbage." Marisol waited until his friends drifted away before she approached. She followed him toward a quieter stretch of the hall near the tall, iron-framed windows. "Federico?" He didn't turn. She reached out and tapped his shoulder. He spun around, his thick eyebrows knitting together. "What?" His stare was meant to be intimidating, but compared to the cold, dead look in Ariana Elfrida's eyes, Federico was about as scary as a golden retriever. "I know you didn't get an invitation to Ariana's party," Marisol said. Federico crossed his massive arms. "And why is that your business?" Marisol gripped the straps of her worn-out backpack. "Because I can help. I have an invitation. It's yours if you want it." The hostility vanished. Federico's eyes went wide. "Wait, you have an invite?" "I do." Federico gave her a long, confused look. "Are you new or something?" Marisol fought the urge to roll her eyes. "No. I've been in your history class for 4 years, Federico." "Oh." He blinked, clearly having never noticed her existence until this moment. "Do you want it or not?" Marisol pulled the cream card from her bag. Federico's jaw dropped. "Man, you really have one. I'm definitely interested." "Good. How much are you willing to pay?" Federico's face fell. He rubbed the back of his neck. "Look, the thing is, I can't pay you. Not in cash. My dad cut off my cards until I bring my grades up. I'm totally broke." Marisol sighed, moving to put the card away. "I understand. I'll find someone else." "No!" Federico grabbed her wrist, his eyes desperate. "Wait, I can trade you. Look at your bag. It's falling apart." He pointed to her backpack, which was held together by prayer and a few strips of duct tape. "My mom is an executive at Burberry. I can get you a brand new one. Top of the line." Marisol paused. A designer bag was a luxury she didn't need, but then she thought about her mother's voice on the phone. She thought about the way people looked through her in these halls. "The bag," Marisol said, narrowing her eyes. "Plus $200. "I told you, I'm broke." Marisol raised an eyebrow. "I'm sure you can find $200, Federico. Otherwise, I'll go see if Connor wants it." Federico groaned, looking defeated. "Fine, you win. Give me until the end of the day." By sunset, Marisol was back in her dorm, running her fingers over the checkered canvas of a brand new Burberry backpack. 2 crisp $100 bills sat on her desk next to it. For the first time in years, she felt like she actually belonged at this school. She felt visible. A familiar rustle came from the bottom of the door. Marisol froze. She scrambled across the floor and ripped the door open, but the hallway was a ghost town. No one was there. She looked down. Another cream-colored envelope sat on the floor. Her heart did a slow, heavy thud against her ribs. She picked it up, her fingers trembling. It was the same invitation, the same date, but when she flipped it over, her blood turned to ice. In the same beautiful, elegant calligraphy, a new message was written on the back. "I look forward to seeing you, Marisol." Ariana. He knows, she whispered to the empty room. You coming or what? A girl in glittery heels shouted, her voice echoing down the hallway. Marisol Davis didn't answer. She kept her door shut, staring at the cream-colored card sitting on her desk. The invitation looked expensive, heavy, and totally out of place in her cramped dorm room. On the back, Ariana Elfrida had written a note in a script so perfect it felt like a taunt. She wasn't a stupid girl. Usually, she was the one calculating the risks, beating the odds by staying 2 steps ahead. But this didn't feel like a risk. It felt like a trap. There was only one reason a guy like Ariana would invite a girl like her to a party, to make an example of her. Not tonight, Ariana, Marisol muttered, tossing the card aside. She had no interest in becoming a public spectacle. Instead, she chose her Friday night essentials: oversized pajamas, a hot mug of tea, and her sketchbook. She flipped on a mindless sitcom for background noise and settled into her bed. Technically, she should have been cramming for her chemistry exam. Her grades were barely hovering above the surface, and the academic pressure of Billionaire Heights was a constant weight. But her fingers ached. When she went too long without drawing, it felt like a physical itch she couldn't scratch. Art was the only place where she felt in control. In her sketchbook, the world made sense. Kneaded erasers were much more forgiving than the thermodynamic equations currently mocking her from her backpack. She remembered telling her mother about her dream once. She wanted a small, sunlit apartment in Manhattan, making a living through gallery shows and commissions. Her mother had laughed. It wasn't a mean laugh, but it was the laugh of someone who knew the world didn't work that way for people like them. Big dreams were for the trust fund babies in the rooms down the hall. For Marisol, the world expected a practical path: scholarships, a stable job, and a life spent watching her back. But Marisol had spent her whole life ignoring what she was supposed to do. She scrolled through her phone, looking for a reference photo. She landed on a portrait of a man with his head tilted at a sharp, interesting angle. With a graphite pencil, she began sketching the basic structure. She always started with the eyes. She worked the lead into the paper, adding depth and shadow. But something was off. She pressed harder, adding more contrast, trying to capture the intensity she saw in her mind rather than the photo. When she finally leaned back, her heart skipped a beat. The face on the paper wasn't the man from the photo. It was Ariana. His dark, empty gaze stared back at her from the page, invading her only safe space. "Get out of my head," she whispered, flinging the pencil across the room. Outside, a stampede of footsteps rattled her door as the senior girls headed out. In the quad below, she could hear the muffled shouts of the lacrosse team pre-gaming. The energy of the campus was shifting, buzzing with the kind of excitement that usually made Marisol feel left out. She fidgeted with a loose thread on her blanket. Maybe she was overthinking it. Ariana had all week to corner her if he wanted to humiliate her. Maybe the note was an olive branch. Maybe he just wanted to explain why things had gotten so tense since she spoke to Detective Milagro. Marisol reached for her phone. She needed a reality check. She dialed a familiar number, but it rang through to a full voicemail box. "Great," she sighed. She hesitated, then dialed a different number, one she had saved after her last interview. "Cedro Valley Police Department, front desk," a woman answered. "If this is an emergency, please hang up and call 911. How can I help you?" Marisol cleared her throat. "Hi, I'm looking for Detective Milagro. This is Marisol Davis. She's expecting to hear from me." There was a long silence on the other end. "Detective Milagro is no longer with this department, honey. I can transfer you to another officer." Marisol froze. "What?" "She was there last week. She's lead on a case." "She's no longer employed here," the woman repeated. "I don't understand. How does someone just stop working a case like that?" The receptionist's voice turned professional and cold. "I can't give out personnel information. Would you like to speak to someone else?" Marisol felt a chill that had nothing to do with the drafty window. She needed to know why. She channeled every bit of drama she'd learned from her mother's side of the family. "Oh no," Marisol said. her voice trembling just enough to sound like she was on the verge of tears. Detective Milagro was the only one who listened to me. About my classmate, Mateo, I don't know if I can talk to anyone else. I'm just so scared. She let out a small, pathetic sniffle. The silence on the other end softened. The receptionist sighed. Look, I shouldn't tell you this, but Milagro was let go for inappropriate investigation practices. That's all I can say. Do you want that transfer? Wait, Marisol blurted out. What about Mateo Luna's case? Is it still open? Let me see. No. The file was closed after the termination. It's been officially ruled a suicide. All personal items have been returned to the family. Marisol's hand tightened around her phone. Closed? Just like that. That's all the info I have, honey. Have a good night. The line went dead. Marisol stood in the center of her room, her mind racing. Inappropriate practices? Milagro had been nothing but thorough. The only inappropriate thing she'd done was pull Ariana Elfrida out of class for questioning. Too convenient, Marisol whispered. The Elfridas didn't just have money. They had power. They ate dinner with senators. They didn't have scandals. They had public relations teams that made sure their names stayed clean. They were untouchable. Detective Milagro had reached for the truth, and she'd been burned for it. Marisol looked back at the drawing on her desk. The dark eyes she'd sketched seemed to mock her. Was she being paranoid? Was she just listening to too many of her friend Ricardo's wild theories? You see people, Milagro had told her. The ones who aren't as nice as they seem. Don't doubt your instincts. Marisol's gut wasn't just whispering now. It was screaming. Ariana Elfrida had ended a woman's career and buried a boy's death all in 1 week. He was hiding something, and he thought he'd bought enough silence to keep it covered. She grabbed the cream-colored invitation. If Ariana wanted her at that party, he was going to get her. I hope you're ready, Ariana, Marisol said, her voice hard, because I'm not staying home. Just so you know, lock, the buy-in is $2,000. Cash only. I don't care how many bottles of scotch you promise me. The voice cut through the thick, humid air of the dorm suite, followed immediately by a girl screaming about body shots. Marisol Davis pressed her back against the wall, trying to make herself small. She had never seen so many people packed into one space. Calling Ariana Elfrida's living quarters a dorm room was like calling a mansion a shack. The place was massive, yet every square inch of the dark, expensive furniture was buried under a sweating, intoxicated body. The heat was stifling. It made her black gown, the same one she'd worn to the vigil, stick to her skin like a second layer of grief. She scanned the room, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. To her left, a group of students had abandoned their dignity for a game of strip poker. To her right, senior boys lounged in leather recliners, blowing cigar smoke at a marble mantel and arguing over the size of their family yachts. Marisol looked at a bronze figurine on the shelf and briefly calculated its street value. It was probably worth more than her tuition. She shook the thought away. She wasn't here to steal. She was here for answers. The air smelled of expensive perfume, stale sweat, and something sharp and chemical. Members of the swim team were huddled over a coffee table, their noses buried in white powder. It was chaos, but it was expensive, contained chaos. A shoulder slammed into hers. Marisol stumbled, her heels skidding on the hardwood. Cold, clammy fingers gripped her arm to steady her. She looked up into the blown-out, glassy pupils of Paloma Reyes. Sorry about that. Paloma giggled. Her honey-blonde hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. She didn't let go. You look familiar. Have we made out before? No, Marisol said, peeling the girl's hands off her skin. We haven't. Do you know where Ariana is? Paloma didn't seem to hear her. She reached out, twirling a strand of Marisol's near-white hair between her fingers. Your hair is so blonde. Where do you get it done? Before Marisol could answer, someone shouted Paloma's name. The girl drifted away like a ghost in a designer dress. Marisol didn't waste a second. She pushed through the crowd, dodging a couple who were far too busy with each other to notice they were in public. She needed air. She needed to get away from the smell of smoke and the sight of Beatrice Landis showing off her new plastic surgery. At the end of a long hallway, she spotted a set of red stanchion ropes. Beyond them, the noise of the party muffled into a dull roar. These kids might be wasted, but they knew better than to cross the line into Ariana's private sanctuary. Marisol didn't. She ducked under the rope. The hallway was lined with 3 doors. The first 2 were shut tight, but the third was cracked open. A sliver of warm light spilled onto the carpet. Her gut told her to turn around. It told her to grab that bronze statue and run. Instead, she pushed the door open. It was a study. It was silent, spotless, and smelled of old paper and cedar. A fire crackled in a brick fireplace, casting long shadows over a mahogany desk that looked like it belonged in a museum. Marisol ran her hand over the surface. No dust, no clutter. She moved to the bookshelf. Her eyes skimmed titles on anatomy, heart surgery, and psychology. Nestled at the very end was a small, leather-bound book with no title. It looked out of place. Marisol pulled it from the shelf. She opened the cover and felt the air leave her lungs. Property of Mateo Luna. Her stomach did a slow, sickening roll. This belonged to Mateo. It should have been with his parents, not tucked away in Ariana's private collection. She flipped through the pages. Most were blank, but the entries from the start of the semester were filled with mundane complaints. Mateo talked about Yale, his hatred for Professor Aranda, and a girlfriend he didn't name. He sounded happy. He sounded like a boy with a future, not a boy ready to jump from a window. Then, she found her own name. Marisol always waits until the last minute, then spends the presentation kissing the dean's ass. I don't mind. I don't have to do as much talking. A bitter laugh escaped her. Even in death, Mateo was calling her out. She turned to the final page. There was only one sentence, scrawled in frantic, messy ink. Ariana Elfrida is going to kill me. The book felt like it was burning her hands. It wasn't a suicide. It was a warning. Whatever you're reading must be absolutely riveting. The voice was low, smooth, and much too close. Marisol froze. She slammed the journal shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the quiet room. She turned slowly. Ariana Elfrida was leaning against the doorframe. His arms were crossed over a white cashmere sweater, his broad shoulders blocking the only exit. His dark eyes were unreadable, fixed directly on her face. Ariana, Marisol managed, her voice thin. I didn't see you there. So was it? He asked, stepping into the room. Was it what? Riveting. He gestured to the book she was clutching against her chest. The journal. Marisol's heart was hammering so hard she was sure he could see it through her dress. No, not really. I shouldn't have been snooping. I just needed a break from the noise. Then why were you reading it? He was closer now. The firelight played across his sharp cheekbones and the slight, effortless smile that had charmed every person on campus. I saw Mateo's name, Marisol said. Forced honesty her only weapon. I wanted to know why he did it. I thought there might be an explanation. Ariana nodded slowly. Everyone wants a reason. Dr. Pardo is handing out coloring books to anyone who asks. It's a tragedy, isn't it? He smiled, and for a second, Marisol saw his dimples. They were perfect. They made him look human. They made him look safe. But she knew better. He had Mateo's journal. He had ended a detective's career. The smile was just a mask for the teeth underneath. Is that why you have it? Marisol asked. For an explanation? Ariana shrugged. Something like that. I should go, Marisol said, her voice rushing. It's late. I have to study. Sorry again about the snooping. She tried to brush past him, but Ariana didn't move. He was a wall of expensive fabric and cold intent. He looked down at her hands. You're still holding the book. Marisol looked down. Her knuckles were white. Right? Sorry. She turned to the shelf, her hands shaking so violently she couldn't slide the journal back into its spot. Suddenly, a large, tanned hand covered hers. Ariana's fingers were warm and steady. He guided the book back into its place between the medical texts. You know what I think, Marisol? His breath was a cool ghost against her ear. I think you're lying. Marisol didn't move. I'm not. No? So you didn't read the part where he names me as his killer. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush her. The game was over. She turned to face him, forcing herself to look into those dark, empty eyes. So what if I did? Are you going to kill me too? Ariana's expression didn't change, but his hand moved. His fingers wrapped around her throat. He didn't squeeze, but the grip was firm. A collar of flesh and bone that told her exactly who owned the room. Are you going to beg for your life? He asked. He sounded bored, as if he were asking about the weather. Marisol felt the tears pricking her eyes, but she shoved them back. She thought of Mateo. Is that what Mateo did? Did he beg before you pushed him? Ariana's mouth quirked into a lazy smirk. No, I suppose he didn't. The confirmation hit her like a physical blow. He did it. He was a murderer and she was trapped in his office. I'm not going to beg, Marisol said, her voice surprisingly steady. But if you listen for a second, I can give you something else. Something more interesting than begging. One of Ariana's eyebrows arched. I'm not interested in your body, Marisol. Not that, she snapped, her face flushing. Honesty. I didn't know you killed him until 5 minutes ago. I came here to talk about Detective Milagro. I know you got her fired. Ariana's grip loosened slightly. I could tell you I won't say anything, she continued, the words spilling out. And I'd mean it. I'm too selfish to die for a guy who barely knew my name. But I'm a liability now. You're probably going to kill me anyway. She waited for the pressure to return. She waited for her world to go black. Instead, Ariana took a step back. He released her neck and watched her with a strange, flickering curiosity. No, he said, the words sounding like a private joke. I don't think I will. He moved to the door, his hand resting on the knob. He looked back over his shoulder, flashing a smile that was all sharp, white teeth. Not right now, anyway. You've just become the most interesting thing on campus, Marisol Davis. He stepped out and shut the door softly behind him. Marisol collapsed to the floor, her lungs finally drawing in a ragged, gasping breath. She was alive, but as she sat in the dark study, she realized she had traded a quick death for something much more dangerous. What have I done? She whispered to the empty room. Friday night was a ghost story. Saturday was a fever dream. By Sunday, the shadows on the dorm wall weren't just shapes to Marisol Davis. They were Ariana Elfrida, wearing a silent grin. She didn't sleep a wink. She just watched the door, waiting for the handle to turn. A fitful nap finally came on Sunday afternoon, but only after she shoved her heavy wooden desk against the door. It was a pathetic barricade against a guy who owned the entire zip code, but it gave her enough mental clarity to realize she was running out of time. She needed a plan, no matter how slim the odds looked. Option 1 was the police. She could walk into the Cedro Valley station and scream murder, but the journal was gone. Ariana had likely burned it the second she left his sight. Besides, if a teacher like Ms. Hansen could lose her career just for whispering the wrong name, what would happen to a scholarship student? The local cops wouldn't touch an Elfrida. She'd need the FBI, but no one at a federal level would listen to an 18-year-old girl with zero physical evidence. Option 2 was the coward's exit, run. She could pack her bags, head back to Mobile, and finish senior year at a public school. She'd lose her hard-earned spot at the Pratt Institute and her entire future in art, but she'd be breathing. You've just become the most interesting thing on campus, Marisol Davis. His voice echoed in her head like a curse. If her life depended on being interesting, she was already on borrowed time. Ariana was a wild card, dangerous, unpredictable, and bored. Marisol spent Sunday night buried in her laptop, fueled by enough caffeine to stop a heart. She needed facts. She found plenty, but none offered a way out. The Elfrida family was old money personified, owning everything from tech to timber. Their net worth was a number that didn't even look real on a screen. They were ghosts in the media. No scandals, no leaked texts, just polished photos of Elfrida shaking hands with titans of industry and Mary Elfrida hosting galas. Ariana was the only child. No siblings, no cousins. Just a straight line of inheritance for a child prodigy who had vanished from the public eye years ago. She shut the laptop as the sun began to creep over the horizon. She was no closer to a solution than when she started. Monday morning felt like walking through a minefield. The only silver lining was that their shared college prep class was canceled. Professor Aranda was out of town, which meant a temporary grace period. Or so Marisol thought. The entire school was buzzing about Ariana's party. In the cafeteria, Marisol found a spot by the dumpsters. It smelled like rotting trash and old pasta, but it was far away from the prying eyes of the popular tables. I don't remember a thing. Paloma whined a few rows over, nursing a headache with a bottle of overpriced water. Too many party favors. As if you weren't in the coat room all night, Valeria teased. Sophia, the resident queen bee, took a slow, calculated sip of green juice. I was with Ariana, she said, her voice carrying across the room. He was practically glued to my side all night. Marisol stared at her pasta salad. If Ariana had been with Sophia, he wouldn't have been trying to choke the life out of Marisol in a dark study. Sophia was lying, and for a split second, Marisol actually felt sorry for her. The girl was chasing a monster she didn't understand. Then she remembered Sophia had spent years making her life miserable, and the pity vanished. A couple of lacrosse players walked by. Hey, Marisol, Federico Rios said, giving her a casual nod. Marisol almost choked. Hey, Federico. He'd never spoken to her before. The shift in the atmosphere was palpable. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was a target of curiosity. Then the cafeteria doors swung open. The room went silent for a beat before erupting into a fresh wave of whispers. Ariana walked in like he owned the very air. He looked perfect. Crisp shirt, straight tie, and dark curls that hadn't moved an inch. He didn't look like a killer. He looked like a prince. Marisol tried to shrink into her seat. Don't look over here. Keep walking. He didn't keep walking. He headed straight for the dumpster table and pulled out the chair across from her with a loud, intentional screech. Is this seat taken? He was smiling. It was a warm, friendly smile that made Marisol's skin crawl. Would you go away if I said yes? Marisol snapped. The whispers intensified. Sophia called out from her table, her voice tight and desperate. Ariana, we saved a spot for you. Maybe next time, Ariana said, not even glancing her way. I'm good here. He sat down and took a bite of a bright red apple. He didn't have a tray, just the fruit. He looked at Marisol with those cold, observant eyes. What do you want? She hissed, leaning in so the other students couldn't eavesdrop. You got me thinking, he said, smirking, about honesty. I think I need more of it in my life. Do you even know what that word means? He laughed. It was a low, pleasant sound that felt like a hidden blade. I'm a quick learner. He reached out suddenly, and Marisol flinched, gripping her fork like a weapon. He only grabbed a stray napkin that was about to blow away. Jumpy today, aren't we? I told you at the party I wasn't going to hurt you. No, Marisol corrected. You said you weren't going to kill me right now. Exactly. So don't give me a reason to change my plan. He leaned forward, dropping his voice to a dangerous velvet. Do you still draw? The question caught her completely off guard. What? You won second place in a county contest back in 6th grade, he said. I liked yours better. You should have taken first. Marisol's blood ran cold. How do you know that? I did my research, Marisol. I wanted to know what I was dealing with. You wanted to know if I was a threat, she countered. He grinned, showing a flash of white teeth. Well, that goes without saying. But you didn't answer. Do you still draw? There's no art on your schedule this year. I do. I just didn't have room for the class. Good. I want to see it. Marisol let out a sharp, hysterical laugh. You almost kill me, and now you want to see my sketchbook? No. Why not? Are you drawing something scandalous? Nudes. Her face burned. No. I just don't show people. It's private. I'd be a great model, he said, winking. I can stay very still. You can dress me up or down. Whatever fits your vision. He was flirting. It was a game. He was poking at her to see if she'd crack or blush. Marisol took a deep breath and forced her heart rate to steady. You can take my lunch hour, she said, her voice finally finding its footing. But you're not seeing my art. Stay curious. His smile faded into something sharper. I don't know what I want to do with you yet, Marisol. You know things you aren't supposed to know. I won't tell anyone. Don't lie to me, he cut in. That would be so disappointing. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. The room began to clear, but they stayed locked in that moment. Marisol realized then that the only reason she was still alive was because she was a puzzle he hadn't solved yet. I'll let you see the art, she said suddenly. He paused. But only if you tell me why. Why Mateo? The mask slipped for a fraction of a second. Surprise. Then it was gone. And if I said there was no reason, that I just felt like it, I wouldn't believe you. You don't do anything without a reason. You're right. I don't. He stood up, towering over the table. I don't want to talk about Mateo. He's boring. You're not. Then no art. He stared at her for a long beat. The light from the stained glass windows hit his face, making him look hauntingly beautiful. It was a terrifying realization. Tonight, he said, you show me your world. I'll show you mine. He turned and walked away before she could say no. Marisol sat there alone, the smell of the trash finally catching up to her, realizing she'd just invited a murderer to a private viewing. The mirror in the girl's bathroom reflected a splash of cold water and a sudden, unwelcome shadow. Marisol tensed, her damp hands hovering over the porcelain sink. Through the glass, she watched Sophia Mondragon glide into the frame. Sophia stood less than 5 feet away, her arms crossed over a designer blazer, her signature red hair falling in perfect, expensive waves. Marisol forced a polite tone. Sorry? Did you need the sink? Sophia didn't move. Her gaze drifted downward, landing on the floor beside Marisol. I like your backpack, she said, her voice airy and sharp. Burberry, right? Marisol nodded slowly. It is. It's cute. Sophia offered a thin, smug smile that didn't reach her eyes. People always say it's tacky to wear last season's lineup, but honestly, good for you. Someone has to buy up the leftover inventory, right? Heat flared in Marisol's cheeks. She gripped the edge of the sink, repeating a silent mantra. Her opinion doesn't matter. She is nobody. It took 3 long breaths before Marisol found the nerve to turn around and face the girl head-on. I wouldn't know, Marisol said, her voice steady. The backpack was a gift. Sophia's smile faltered. The gears shifted behind her eyes as she tried to calculate who in their social circle would hand out designer bags to someone like Marisol. You know, Sophia said, her tone sharpening. You look familiar, but I don't think we've actually met. We've met, Marisol replied. She didn't offer anything else. She remembered freshman year perfectly. The exact moment Sophia's interest had died when she realized Marisol was a scholarship student wearing sneakers from a department store. Sophia's eyebrows furrowed. Oh, have we? That's weird. I'm normally so good with names. Even the forgettable ones. Marisol's jaw tightened. She had watched Sophia pull this routine on Paloma and Valeria for years, but being the target felt entirely different. I'm Marisol, she finally muttered. Marisol? Sophia prompted, tilting her head. Davis. Sophia perked up instantly. Oh, Davis. As in Governor Davis? Or the oil industry family? Neither. The senator? Marisol's smile felt like it might crack her face. Davis as in nobody you'd know. The realization hit Sophia like a physical wave. Her expression shifted into a look of exaggerated, sugary pity. Oh, I see. You poor thing. You're a scholarship student, aren't you? Like Mateo was. Marisol saw the flicker of genuine satisfaction in the other girl's eyes. You know, Sophia continued, my mom loves donating to charity. I can see if she has any extra canned goods in the pantry. They're just collecting dust. And if it'll help feed your family this winter. I don't need your charity, Marisol snapped. The words were too loud, too sharp. Sophia's eyes lit up. She had won. She had found the nerve and pinched it. Sophia tucked a loose curl behind her ear, looking triumphant. "Well, if you change your mind, don't go asking Ariana," Sophia said, her voice dropping to a condescending purr. "He's generous, sure, but he's never been able to say no to the working class. It's a habit of his." With a final, pitying look, Sophia's heels clicked against the tile as she walked out. Marisol stood alone at the sink, simmering. It had taken less than 2 minutes for Sophia to get under her skin. For years at Billionaire Heights, and she still let the old money jabs sting. But Sophia Mondragon was a minor irritation. Tonight, Marisol had a much bigger problem. Tonight, she was hosting a murderer. Marisol considered hiding in the library, but the instinct for self-preservation told her that ditching Ariana Elfrida was a bad move. She retreated to her dorm room, leaving her desk messy. Ariana wasn't a guest. He didn't deserve a tidy room. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small, cheap pocket knife. It was a parting gift from Ricardo, given to her the day she left for school. "Your mom's been hounding me to make sure you're ready," he'd grumbled back then. At the time, she'd thought it was a ridiculous, against-the-rules gift. Now, her thumb traced the aluminum handle with a surge of genuine gratitude. The blade was small, but it was steel. She tucked it into her right pocket. Then, she pulled out her phone and opened a voice recording app. Her finger hovered over the screen before she pressed start. She slid the device into her blazer pocket, the timer ticking away in the dark. A sharp knock echoed through the room. Marisol jumped, her heart hammering against her ribs. She took a breath, smoothed her skirt, and opened the door. Ariana leaned against the frame, looking like he'd stepped off a magazine cover. He had ditched his blazer, his white sleeves rolled up to reveal toned forearms. He looked relaxed, dangerous and relaxed. "You look terrified," he said, his voice smooth. "Am I truly that scary?" "Yes," Marisol thought. Out loud, she said, "We don't have to do this here. I can bring my sketchbook to the library." Ariana didn't wait for an invitation. He strolled past her into the small room. Marisol reluctantly shut the door. He stopped by her twin bed, picking up a small, worn stuffed lion from the comforter. "This is cute," he teased, turning the toy over. "I've had that since I was a kid," Marisol said, her neck flushing. "A lifelong dream to attend Billionaire Heights." Then, he petted the lion's coarse mane. Quite ambitious for a girl from small-town Saltillo. Marisol narrowed her eyes. Mobile isn't exactly a small town. Ariana shrugged, setting the toy down. He turned his full attention toward her, and the air in the room seemed to thin. "You know what I find interesting about you, Marisol?" Alarm bells screamed in her head. She leaned against the door, trying to look bored. "What's that?" "Out of the thousands of kids who took the scholarship placement test, you had the highest score in the country." A heavy weight settled in Marisol's stomach. "Actually, I had the second highest." Ariana gave her a lopsided, unrepentant smile. "Well, you're the highest now." Marisol stayed silent, her throat tight. "Thousands of kids," Ariana continued, pacing the small space. "You out-tested them all. You're a prodigy, a genius. And yet, since you've arrived at Billionaire Heights, you've been a mediocre C student. It's a fascinating contradiction." His eyes searched hers, looking for the crack in her armor. Marisol forced a shrug. "You know what they say, CS get degrees. And CS lose scholarships," he countered. Marisol didn't want to talk about her grades. She didn't want him looking at her life that closely. "I thought you came here to see my art," she said, nodding toward the desk. Ariana held up his hands. "I can't help being curious. Isn't that what tonight is about?" "I have questions for you too," Marisol reminded him. "Go ahead. My records are an open book." "I don't think it's scrutinizing when someone has straight A's," Marisol remarked. "And 1 B+, he corrected. Sophomore year. Literature. Professor Aranda's lectures are basically a lullaby." Marisol almost laughed, then caught herself. He was doing it again, using charm to make her forget who he was. He was a snake with beautiful scales. "Here," she said, grabbing the sketchbook and thrusting it at him. "Just look." Ariana took the book. The room went quiet as he began to flip through the pages. Marisol watched him, feeling a raw, uncomfortable vulnerability. He didn't say a word. He just turned page after page, his expression unreadable. "I never said I was good," Marisol whispered into the silence. Ariana didn't look up. "You're right. You aren't good." The sting was sharper than she expected. She reached for the book. "Fine. If your expectations were that high, that's your fault." "You aren't good," he repeated, finally looking at her. A slow smile spread across his face. "You're incredible."